The vastness of space stretched endlessly before Captain Elena Drake's eyes, her hands gripping the smooth console of the command center. The darkness of the cosmos seemed infinite, but beyond the quiet, a storm was brewing, a storm that would shake the galaxy to its core. Out there, somewhere in the endless void, the Galactic Council was preparing for its most audacious move yet, the destruction of Earth. For centuries, the Galactic Council, an assembly of the most advanced and ruthless alien races, had ruled with absolute control, crushing any species that dared challenge their authority. They had observed Earth, a primitive planet with a young civilization, and deemed it unworthy of even a glance. In their eyes, humanity was nothing more than a fleeting blip, unprepared to defend itself against their superior technology. Zorvax, the leader of the council, sat in his throne room, surrounded by his generals and advisors. His cold, calculating eyes stared down at Earth from the massive viewscreen before him. The green and blue orb of the planet appeared insignificant against the expanse of the galaxy. He sneered at it, already finalizing plans for Earth's subjugation. The human race, he thought, would bow to the might of the Council in no time. But Zorvax and his generals made a grave mistake, they underestimated humanity. Far from the Galactic Council's watchful eyes, Earth was not as defenseless as it seemed. Unknown to the Council, a secret fleet had been in the works for years, a fleet that would turn the tables in the coming war. Deep within the farthest reaches of space, 300 warships lay in wait. Their hulls were equipped with advanced cloaking devices, rendering them invisible to the prying sensors of the Council's most advanced ships. Their weapons systems were top of the line, designed for one purpose, to strike when the time was right. And the time was now. Captain Elena Drake stood in front of the massive viewscreen in the command center of the lead warship, Vanguard, her sharp eyes scanning the endless black space ahead. As the young and brilliant commander of the fleet, Elena had worked tirelessly to prepare for this moment. Her mission was clear: protect Earth, at all costs, and bring vengeance to the alien invaders who dared threaten it. She glanced at the holographic display in front of her. A map of the galaxy showed their fleet, carefully hidden far from the Galactic Council's territory. Elena's eyes flicked over the data, her mind processing the intricate plans they had put into place. Despite the technological superiority of the Council, Elena knew something they didn't: humanity was not as weak as they believed. There was a strength in the human spirit, a relentless will to survive and fight back when cornered. She would prove that, no matter the cost. The ship's AI chimed, breaking her focus. Captain Drake, incoming distress signal from Earth. It's coded, urgent. Elena's heart skipped a beat. She nodded, motioning for the message to be played. Her mind raced as the familiar voice of her father came through the static. Elena, we need help. The Council's forces, they've arrived earlier than expected. We can't hold out much longer. Please, do what you must. We can't protect Earth without you. The message ended abruptly. Elena stood frozen, the weight of the words sinking in. Her pulse quickened. The distress call came from the colony where her sister, Lana, had lived. Lana had been one of the first to sign up for Earth's defense forces, eager to protect her homeworld. Elena's thoughts flashed back to the day she lost her sister. It had been years ago, when an alien invasion had wiped out Lana's colony. Despite all their efforts, the invaders' overwhelming firepower had been too much. Lana had died in that battle, her name etched forever in Elena's heart. Elena clenched her fists, her jaw tightening with determination. This was not just about defending Earth, it was personal. The Galactic Council had taken something precious from her, and now, they would pay. She turned to her second-in-command, Commander Aiden Ross, who had been by her side since the beginning of their mission. We can't wait any longer, Elena said, her voice cold and resolute. We make the jump to Earth now. They won't know what hit them. Aiden nodded. Aye, Captain. All ships are ready to go. It's time. As Elena gave the command, the fleet of 300 warships, silent and deadly, engaged their cloaking devices and prepared for the first strike. The Vanguard and its sister ships disappeared from sight, hidden from the prying eyes of the Galactic Council. The jump was swift. One moment, the fleet was hidden deep in space, and the next, they emerged, breaking through the cloaking field in perfect unison. The sudden appearance of the human fleet was enough to send shockwaves through the galaxy. It was a spectacle that even the most advanced alien minds could not have predicted. The Council had no time to react. Elena stood at the helm of the Vanguard, her eyes locked on the viewscreen as the vast fleet of warships materialized before her. The humans were no longer the underdogs, they were a force to be reckoned with. "Target the nearest fleet," Elena ordered, her voice sharp and commanding. "Prepare to fire on my mark." Her heart pounded as she gazed upon the alien vessels. There was no turning back now. The stakes had never been higher. The Galactic Council had written humanity off as insignificant, but now Earth's secret fleet was here to rewrite that story. In the heart of the Galactic Council's command ship, Zorvax felt the disturbance before anyone else. His eyes widened in disbelief as the first human warship appeared on the sensor grid. The sight of it, along with hundreds of others, left him frozen in shock. His arrogant, dismissive attitude toward humanity had been shattered in an instant. This was no ordinary force. It was a military presence unlike anything the Council had ever faced. "What is this?" Zorvax hissed, his mind racing. He had expected a swift, easy conquest of Earth. But this was something entirely different. Zorvax turned to his advisors, his voice low and dangerous. "Activate the planetary shields. Prepare the fleet for immediate counterattack. We cannot allow this to continue." But even as the Council scrambled to prepare, it was already too late. The humans were not just defending, they were fighting back with a power and resolve that sent ripples of fear through the alien ranks. Elena's fleet moved quickly, coordinating their attacks with precision. The first wave of alien ships was caught off guard, unable to keep up with the humans' sudden, calculated strike. Plasma cannons fired, streaking through space and disabling the alien vessels one by one. As Elena watched the battle unfold on the viewscreen, she allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. But she knew that this was just the beginning. The real war had only started, and the Council would not surrender easily. With the fleet fully revealed, the time for secrecy was over. Elena's mission was now in full swing, and she would stop at nothing to ensure humanity's survival. The Galactic Council had made a fatal mistake by underestimating Earth. Now, the fight for the future of the galaxy was underway, far from the battleground where Earth's secret fleet had just emerged in a blaze of destruction. The Galactic Council's command center remained cold and calculating, filled with alien generals and advisors. They had spent years refining their plans for the invasion of Earth, all while underestimating the tenacity and potential of humanity. At the heart of this monstrous machine was Zorvax, the ruthless and overconfident leader of the Galactic Council. His eyes, sharp and calculating, glimmered with arrogance as he stared at the display showing Earth's defenses, which he considered laughable at best. He had seen countless civilizations fall to the might of the Council's armies, their leaders crushed beneath the weight of superior technology. He was certain that Earth, with its primitive weapons and technology, would be no different. His advisors and generals crowded around him, awaiting his orders to commence the final phase of their operation. Zorvax had been preparing for this moment for years, and he relished the thought of crushing yet another insignificant planet beneath his boot. He glanced at his fleet status and noted that the alien ships were being readied for a final assault. "The time has come," Zorvax said with a cold, almost sadistic smile. "The humans are weak, and their defenses will fall before our might. Prepare the invasion force. We strike now." His voice was filled with a chilling certainty. His eyes never left the screens, where Earth loomed large, vulnerable, he believed, to the overwhelming force of the Council's armada. Despite the momentous event about to unfold, Zorvax's arrogance kept him from noticing the real danger that was emerging. He was blind to the growing threat right in front of him. Humanity was not as weak as he believed, and the humans had already made their move. But for now, his mind was focused solely on the one thing that would guarantee the galaxy's compliance: the annihilation of Earth. Zorvax ordered the deployment of the fleet to Earth, confident that his ships, equipped with the finest technology the galaxy had to offer, would easily overwhelm Earth's defenses. As the Council's vast armada prepared to launch, Zorvax moved with chilling certainty, directing his ships toward Earth's atmosphere. At the heart of the Council's attack plans was a terrifying new weapon, the AI War Colossus. It was a monstrous machine, towering over any of the fleets that had come before it. Designed for one purpose only, it was a mechanical weapon like no other. The AI War Colossus was an intelligent, self-aware machine with the power to devastate entire cities in the blink of an eye. Armed with lasers capable of incinerating entire buildings, it was the pinnacle of the Council's technological advancements, and Zorvax believed it would be the perfect tool to break Earth's resistance once and for all. As Zorvax stood before a holographic display of the AI War Colossus, he admired its sheer size. His voice, dripping with pride, echoed through the command center. "This will be the weapon that ends Earth's defiance," Zorvax said, a cruel smile spreading across his face. "With it, we will wipe out their cities in a matter of seconds. They won't know what hit them." His advisors nodded in agreement, unaware that their arrogance would be their downfall. The weapon, while powerful, was not invincible. And beneath Zorvax's smug confidence, there were cracks in the plan, cracks that Elena and her fleet would soon expose. The AI War Colossus was a massive machine, its towering form covered in sleek metallic armor. Its main body housed an artificial intelligence, cold and calculating, that had been designed to learn and adapt. Equipped with advanced weaponry, the War Colossus was capable of making split-second decisions in battle, calculating every move with perfect precision. As Zorvax reveled in his plan, he could not see that his greatest weapon was also his greatest weakness. The AI that controlled the War Colossus had been designed to be unrelenting, designed to obliterate. It had no mercy, no empathy, and no understanding of what it meant to be human. It was a perfect machine for war, but it was also the exact kind of weapon that Elena and her fleet would need to disable if they were to save Earth. Back on the Vanguard, Elena and her crew were preparing for their next move. Their fleet had just struck the first blow against the Galactic Council, but Elena knew that this was just the beginning. The Council would retaliate, and they would do so with terrifying force. Elena's mind was sharp, her every decision calculated, as she analyzed the data coming in from the battle. The Council's fleet was large, but the AI War Colossus was the real threat. Elena's pulse quickened as she pieced together the puzzle. If they didn't stop that weapon, Earth was doomed. The AI would be unstoppable once it reached the surface, and the cities of Earth would burn in an instant. Her first officer, Aiden Ross, approached her with a new report. "Captain, we've just intercepted a transmission from the Council. They've deployed the AI War Colossus. It's on its way to Earth's capital. It's capable of wiping out entire cities in seconds." Elena's face hardened, her mind racing. The mission had just become much more personal. Her sister's colony had been wiped out by an alien invasion years ago. That loss had driven her to this point, to lead this fleet, to strike back, to avenge her sister's death. But now, with the AI War Colossus heading toward Earth, it was no longer just about revenge. It was about saving humanity. "We can't let that machine reach Earth," Elena said, her voice steady but filled with resolve. "Aiden, prepare a strike force. We need to disable the War Colossus before it gets any closer. This is our chance to hit them where it hurts." In the quiet of her command room, Elena turned her eyes away from the tactical screen for a brief moment. Her gaze landed on a small holographic photo of her late sister, Lana. The image was from happier days, Lana smiling with her arm around Elena, their faces glowing with joy. The thought of Lana's death weighed heavily on Elena's heart, a constant reminder of why she was doing this. It had been years since that fateful day when the alien invaders destroyed her sister's colony. The pain of that loss had never fully healed, and every mission, every strike against the Council, had been motivated by that memory. Elena gently touched the hologram, her fingers lingering for a moment before she wiped away the tear that had formed in her eye. The anger that had burned within her since Lana's death flared up once more, and a new fire lit in her chest. The Council had taken everything from her, her sister, her home, and her peace of mind. "We'll stop them," Elena whispered to herself. "I'll make them pay." Aiden, who had been quietly observing his captain, placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We're with you, Elena. We're all in this together." Elena nodded, gathering herself. The time for grieving was over. Now was the time for action. She turned to Aiden, her eyes filled with determination. "Prepare the fleet. We'll strike hard, and we'll strike fast. The War Colossus won't know what hit it." With that, Elena set her course for the Council's AI weapon, determined to save Earth and finally avenge the loss of her sister. The battle was far from over, but this was the moment that could tip the scales. If she could disable the War Colossus, it would be a devastating blow to the Council, and a victory for humanity. The Galactic Council's arrogance would soon cost them dearly. They had underestimated Earth, and their pride in their AI War Colossus would blind them to the imminent danger. Elena and her fleet were prepared to give everything to protect humanity, and with each passing moment, the battle would grow fiercer. As the human fleet closed in on their target, Elena's resolve grew stronger. She would avenge her sister's death, and she would show the Galactic Council just how wrong they were about humanity. In the distance, Earth's fate hung in the balance. Would the Council's arrogance be their undoing, or would humanity rise to the occasion and strike back? The answer would come soon, and Elena was ready to lead the charge. The battle began like a storm, sudden and violent. It was a moment that would decide the fate of Earth. The vast expanse of space, previously silent and still, erupted in blinding flashes of light as the human fleet emerged from its cloaking devices. The sudden surge of energy lit up the dark void, like a brilliant burst of stars. Earth's fleet had been hiding in the shadows, undetected by the Galactic Council's scanners, but now, they made their presence known in the most spectacular fashion. A wave of energy pulses shot out from the human warships, their massive energy cannons firing at full power. The beams of light tore through space, sending shockwaves that rippled through the alien fleet. The Council's first wave, an assortment of sleek, heavily armed warships, tried to retaliate but were caught off guard by the sudden assault. The humans' cloaking technology allowed them to appear out of nowhere, attacking from multiple directions, making it almost impossible for the aliens to predict their movements. From the perspective of the human soldiers aboard the ships, the atmosphere was electric. Elena Drake stood at the helm of the Vanguard, her hands gripping the command console. Her eyes were fixed on the screen, watching as her fleet engaged the first wave of the Galactic Council's forces. She had always been a brilliant strategist, but now, she was living the moment she had trained for. The humans weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for revenge, for freedom, and for their place in the universe. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Elena barked, her voice cutting through the chaos. The crew scrambled to follow her commands, each soldier knowing their role and performing it with military precision. The Vanguard's engines roared as it weaved through incoming fire, dodging the laser beams from the alien ships that streaked across space. The humans had the advantage of speed and surprise, and they used it to their full benefit. The camera panned across the battlefield, following the fast-moving human ships as they darted between larger alien warships. The human vessels, though not as large or heavily armored, were agile and deadly. They zipped through space like predators, swiftly dodging incoming blasts while retaliating with precision shots from their energy cannons. Each explosion was a testament to the skill of the human fleet, every shot counted. Meanwhile, on the alien warships, the crew struggled to keep up with the relentless human assault. The Galactic Council's ships were far more powerful in terms of raw firepower, but they lacked the flexibility and unpredictability of the human fleet. Their laser beams and plasma shots were slow and methodical, easily evaded by the nimble human ships. It was as if the humans had become ghosts, slipping in and out of existence before the aliens could even react. Inside one of the Council's warships, the alien commander, Gartal, watched in disbelief as his ship's systems were overwhelmed. "Where are they? How are they moving so fast?" he hissed, slamming his fist onto the console in frustration. His crew scrambled to find any way to counter the unexpected human attack, but the human superior tactics kept them off balance. The feeling of invincibility that had once been the Council's greatest strength was now a distant memory. As the battle raged on in space, the Vanguard continued its assault, picking off alien ship after alien ship with methodical precision. Elena's fleet wasn't just firing from a distance, they were taking the fight directly to the enemy. Human soldiers, equipped with advanced exosuits, boarded alien ships to engage in close-quarters combat. It was a brutal, bloody clash, fought in the hallways and chambers of the enemy's own vessels. On board the Vanguard, Elena's first officer, Aiden Ross, led a squadron of soldiers in a daring boarding operation. With the thundering sound of magnetic boots hitting the metal floors of the alien ship, the human soldiers rushed forward, their plasma rifles blazing. They were outnumbered, but they were not outgunned. The exosuits enhanced their strength, speed, and agility, making them formidable in battle. As the soldiers stormed through the halls, they engaged alien crew members, who were caught off guard by the humans' ferocity. One of the soldiers, Lieutenant Kara, moved swiftly through the ship's corridors, her plasma rifle glowing brightly as she cut down alien soldiers one by one. The camera zoomed in on her face as she moved, her determination evident. "Keep pushing forward," she shouted into her comms, rallying her comrades. "We need to take control of the reactor room." The action was fast and furious, with the human soldiers using guerrilla tactics to outmaneuver their alien counterparts. They knew the stakes were high, and there was no room for hesitation. Each victory, each alien soldier taken down, was a small but significant step toward defeating the Council. The camera followed the soldiers as they fought through the alien ship's interior, bursting through doors and taking control of key points with explosive precision. The human fleet's ships, meanwhile, continued to tear through space, disabling the Council's warships one by one. The Vanguard darted through the chaos, firing energy blasts that sent alien vessels into a fiery, explosive demise. Elena stood at the helm, her face set with grim determination as she watched the battle unfold on the massive holographic display before her. "Their ships are too slow. We've got them," Elena muttered under her breath, eyes narrowing as she saw another alien ship go up in flames. Her heart raced, but she knew there was no time to celebrate. The battle was still far from won. As the battle continued, a sense of shock spread through the alien ranks. They had never expected such resistance from Earth. The humans had been underestimated, dismissed as weak and primitive. But now, the Galactic Council's plans to crush Earth's resistance were falling apart. Zorvax, watching from his command ship, gritted his teeth in frustration. The reports from his commanders were coming in fast, each one more alarming than the last. The human fleet, though smaller in number, had fought with a ferocity that was unmatched. The AI War Colossus, which had been thought to be the final blow to Earth's defenses, had yet to be deployed, and now it seemed that the human fleet was making a mockery of the Council's overwhelming force. "Where is our victory?" Zorvax growled, slamming his fist against the armrest of his throne. "Why are they still fighting back?" His advisors stood by, powerless to offer any solutions. The Council had never faced such an unpredictable enemy, and now they were paying the price. Back in space, Elena's voice cut through the chaos as her fleet engaged yet another wave of the Council's warships. Over the comms, she sent a message to her fleet, her voice calm but filled with conviction: "This is only the beginning." The words rang out across the battlefield, sending a message not only to the Council but to every soldier in the human fleet. The humans were no longer the underdogs, they were taking the fight to the heart of the galaxy, and they weren't going to stop until they had secured their place in the stars. For the Galactic Council, the first clash had been a wake-up call. They had thought Earth's defeat would be quick and easy. But now, they were faced with a fierce, determined enemy that was far more capable than they had ever imagined. The battle was far from over, but Earth had already proven that it would not fall without a fight. As the Vanguard and the other human ships continued to rain destruction on the alien armada, Elena's resolve hardened. This was just the beginning. The war was far from won, but with every alien ship that was destroyed, every battle won, humanity was taking another step toward their ultimate victory. The first clash had set the stage for an even greater confrontation, a confrontation that would determine the fate of Earth and the galaxy itself. The first clash of the battle had been a shock to the Galactic Council. Their arrogance had blinded them to the true strength of humanity. As Earth's fleet continued to fight back, the aliens realized that this war would not be as easy as they had anticipated. The battle had just begun, and Elena and her fleet had already shown that they would stop at nothing to protect their home. The shockwaves from the first battle were still rippling through space, and the Council's plans were in disarray. But the humans had made one thing clear: they were not going down without a fight. And with every passing moment, Earth's hope grew stronger. The battle in space had already been fierce, but the true test of humanity's resolve was about to come. As Elena Drake and her fleet continued their assault on the Galactic Council's forces, something far more terrifying loomed ahead. Far beyond the reach of human sensors, hidden within the heart of the Council's fleet, the ultimate weapon was activated. Zorvax, the ruthless leader of the Galactic Council, watched from his command ship, a cold smile creeping across his face. After witnessing the unexpected resistance from Earth's forces, he decided it was time to reveal his greatest weapon, a doomsday device so powerful that it could wipe out entire planets with a single strike. This weapon had been designed for one purpose only: to end humanity's fight for survival. Zorvax had no doubt that this would finally break the human spirit. The weapon, a massive structure floating ominously in the dark expanse of space, was a terrifying sight. It was a colossal mass of metal and energy, its core glowing with a sickly green light. The Council had spent years perfecting it. It had the power to destroy Earth in a single blast, leaving nothing but ashes in its wake. As the weapon moved toward Earth, a sense of dread filled the air. The humans had no idea that such a devastating weapon was on its way. But Elena, ever vigilant, soon received intelligence about the doomsday device from one of her scouts. She immediately understood the gravity of the situation. This wasn't just a battle for survival, this was a race against time. Elena quickly called a meeting of her senior officers on the Vanguard. The holographic map of space flickered to life, showing the vast size of the weapon as it slowly approached Earth. "We need to stop that thing, and we need to do it fast," Elena said, her voice filled with determination. "The moment it reaches Earth's atmosphere, it'll be over. We have no chance of surviving if we let it get any closer." Her officers gathered around her, their faces grim. Everyone knew the stakes. But the question was, how could they stop it? The camera zoomed in on the terrifying sight of the doomsday device, which appeared as an immense floating mass of machinery and energy. Its size dwarfed everything around it, casting a shadow across the battlefield. It seemed unstoppable, a manifestation of the Galactic Council's overwhelming power. As it inched closer toward Earth, its core pulsed with menacing energy. On the Vanguard, Elena's team worked tirelessly, poring over schematics and data, trying to find any weakness in the structure. Hours passed, but every moment felt like an eternity. The weapon was getting closer, and their options were running out. Elena couldn't afford to waste time. If they didn't act now, the weapon would reach Earth, and the entire planet would be destroyed in an instant. Then, one of her engineers, Lieutenant Carter, discovered something. "Captain, I've found a weak point," Carter said, his voice urgent. "The weapon's core isn't fully protected. There's a gap in its shielding. If we can get a team inside, we might be able to disable it from within." Elena's eyes narrowed as she studied the holographic display. It was a small window of opportunity, but it was their only chance. The weapon's core was buried deep inside its structure, surrounded by layers of defense, but Carter's discovery gave them hope. But getting to that weak point would be nearly impossible. The weapon's defenses were unlike anything they had ever seen. The outer layers were protected by energy shields that could vaporize anything that came too close. Getting past those shields would require a daring plan. And Elena knew that the mission would be dangerous, possibly even deadly, for those involved. "We don't have much time," Elena said, her voice hard with resolve. "We're going in. Prepare the fleet." As the crew scrambled to prepare for the mission, Elena knew that this would be the hardest decision she would ever have to make. To infiltrate the Doomsday device, they would need to get close without being detected. That meant sending a small team of ships inside the weapon's defensive perimeter, knowing that many might not make it back. Bonner, a beloved officer on her crew, approached Elena. His face was determined, though there was a sadness in his eyes. "Captain," he began, "I know what's at stake here. I volunteer for the mission. I'll lead the team. If we can get close enough, we can disable that thing." Elena hesitated, her heart heavy with the weight of his words. Bonner had been with her from the start. He was more than just an officer, he was a friend, someone she trusted with her life. The thought of losing him was unbearable. "You don't have to do this, Bonner," Elena said quietly, her voice faltering for the first time. "There's no need for you to risk your life. I can send someone else." Bonner smiled softly, the lines of worry on his face softening for just a moment. "You know I wouldn't have it any other way, Captain. We're all in this together. This is our only shot at saving Earth." Elena took a deep breath, her resolve strengthening. She nodded. "I'll be with you every step of the way." As the mission preparations continued, Elena tried to push aside the fear that gnawed at her. She had already lost so much, her sister, the colony, countless comrades, but losing Bonner was something she couldn't bear. Finally, the fleet was ready. Bonner's team, along with a few of the most skilled soldiers, was assigned to infiltrate the Doomsday device. Their plan was simple: get in, disable the core, and get out. But even Elena knew that this mission was a long shot. The camera followed the team as they launched into space, their ships darting toward the colossal weapon. The tension in the air was palpable. As they approached the Doomsday device, the enormity of their task became clear. The energy shields surrounding the weapon flickered, but they remained impenetrable. Bonner's team would have to find a way through the defenses. Just as they reached the shield's perimeter, disaster struck. The energy shields flared bright blue as a wave of energy rippled through space, blasting Bonner's ship into the void. Elena watched in horror as his ship was torn apart, his team lost in an instant. The shock of the explosion sent ripples of disbelief through the human fleet. "No!" Elena screamed, her heart shattering. "Bonner, no!" Her hands clenched around the command console as she fought to control her emotions. Bonner's sacrifice had given them a chance, he had bought them time. But the loss was unbearable. It was the price of war, and Elena knew that every victory would come at a cost. Despite the devastating loss, Elena's resolve didn't waver. She had to finish what Bonner had started. The mission was far from over. Elena's team pressed on, knowing that they couldn't afford to waste time grieving. The battle had intensified, and Earth's survival depended on their ability to stop the Doomsday device. Every moment counted. With Bonner's sacrifice weighing heavily on her heart, Elena led the charge to infiltrate the weapon. The crew of the Vanguard pushed forward, their courage fueled by the memory of their fallen comrades. The battle was far from over, but Elena knew that they were closer to victory than ever before. And with each passing moment, she vowed to make the Galactic Council pay for their arrogance. Earth's fight was not over, far from it. But Elena had seen what humanity was capable of, and she wasn't about to let it all be destroyed. The battle for Earth was reaching its peak, and the stakes had never been higher. The final confrontation was drawing near, the final battle had begun. Elena Drake stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, her eyes fixed on the glowing battlefield ahead. The Galactic Council's reinforcements had arrived, massive ships swarming toward Earth's defenses like a relentless wave. The stakes had never been higher. This wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. This was humanity's last stand. And at the center of it all was the alien mothership, the heart of the Council's operations. If they could take it down, they could end the war. The Vanguard's crew, exhausted but determined, had already given everything they had to defend Earth. But they couldn't stop now. Elena knew that this mission would be their hardest yet. The only way to truly end the Council's reign of terror was to board the mothership, take it from the inside, and defeat Zorvax, the one who had orchestrated the destruction of countless lives across the galaxy. "We can do this," Elena said, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "We're taking the fight to them. Let's finish this." Her team, the best soldiers humanity had, nodded in silent agreement. They knew what had to be done. They had fought for so long, suffered so many losses. Now was the time for a final push, a final assault. As the fleet engaged in intense space battles above them, Elena's squadron prepared for a dangerous infiltration. The plan was simple: sneak aboard the mothership, take out the Council's leadership, and destroy their command center. It wouldn't be easy. The mothership was heavily guarded, and Zorvax had a deadly arsenal at his disposal. But Elena wasn't going to back down. Not now. Not after everything that had happened. As the human forces moved in, the first wave of combat was brutal. Ships collided in a deadly dance, energy blasts lighting up the dark expanse of space. The Council's ships were massive, each one bristling with weapons and shields. But Elena's fleet was swift, using their cloaking devices and advanced tactics to avoid direct confrontation as much as possible. The goal wasn't to win this battle in space, it was to board the mothership. Elena's heart pounded as the Vanguard moved in close. She knew that once they boarded, there would be no turning back. The interior of the mothership was a labyrinth of cold metal, towering structures, and dark, ominous hallways. The air was thick with the smell of machinery and the hum of the ship's engines. The sound of heavy boots clanking against the metal floors echoed through the ship as Elena and her team moved cautiously through the corridors, weapons raised. The enemy was everywhere. Alien soldiers, each more formidable than the last, appeared at every turn, ready to stop them. But Elena and her squad were ready. They fought with every ounce of strength they had, pushing forward through the overwhelming odds. Laser fire ricocheted off their armor, and explosions rocked the ship's foundation, but the humans pressed on, their resolve unshaken. There were sacrifices along the way. One by one, soldiers fell, taken out by the sheer force of the Council's defenses. Elena's heart ached with each loss, but she couldn't afford to stop. Every fallen comrade reminded her of why they were fighting. They couldn't let their deaths be in vain. As Elena's team advanced deeper into the mothership, the battle raged on. The corridors became more chaotic. Alien robots, some the size of houses, activated and began hunting down the infiltrators. The team fought back fiercely, using every weapon and tactic at their disposal to neutralize the robotic foes. The metallic floors shook with each powerful impact, and the air was filled with the crackling sound of laser fire. Despite the relentless opposition, Elena's team pushed forward, determined to reach the control center where Zorvax awaited. The interior of the ship was dark, lit only by bright, neon-colored lights that contrasted sharply against the cold, gray metal. The lights flickered ominously as they moved deeper into enemy territory. Tension filled the air, every step they took could be their last. The camera followed the team closely as they navigated the dark, maze-like corridors of the alien mothership. The flickering neon lights cast long shadows across the walls, creating an atmosphere of constant unease. Each step felt like it could trigger an ambush, and the team's heightened senses were on high alert. Elena led the way, her hand firmly gripping the hilt of her plasma rifle. The weapon gleamed in the dim light, ready to strike. Her breath came in short, controlled bursts as she moved, ever watchful for any sign of danger. The tension was unbearable. Every moment, every breath, seemed to stretch on forever. The ship's layout was unfamiliar, the alien technology strange and foreboding. But Elena couldn't afford to hesitate. Then, suddenly, the first wave of alien soldiers appeared. They rushed toward Elena's team with unnatural speed, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. The team opened fire, and the air was filled with the deafening sound of plasma shots and laser beams. Elena's team fought with precision, taking down one enemy after another. But for every soldier they took down, two more appeared. In one moment of chaotic battle, Elena's armor took a hit, and she was knocked to the ground. Pain shot through her side, but she pushed through it, crawling to cover as the battle continued around her. Her soldiers weren't just fighting to survive, they were fighting for each other. They were fighting for humanity's future. Finally, after what felt like hours, Elena and her remaining squad made it to the heart of the mothership, the command center, where Zorvax awaited. The moment they entered the chamber, they were greeted by the sight of Zorvax himself, a towering alien figure, his body surrounded by glowing, swirling energy. The AI he had so eagerly unleashed now seemed to pulse with anticipation, ready to take control of the battle. Zorvax sneered, his voice cold and mocking as he spoke. "You think you can defeat me? You think your primitive tactics can outsmart the Galactic Council? You're nothing but insects, squirming in the dark." But Elena, despite the pain from her injuries and the loss of so many of her comrades, stood tall. Her resolve was unbroken. "This ends today," she said, her voice steady. As Zorvax prepared to unleash the full force of the AI, Elena noticed something. The AI's core, the very thing that powered Zorvax's defenses, was vulnerable. It was hidden behind a wall of alien technology, but Elena saw the key to destroying it. In a split-second decision, she launched herself at the core, using her tactical genius to disable the AI. Sparks flew as the technology short-circuited, and for a moment, the room was bathed in an eerie silence. Zorvax, realizing too late what had happened, let out a roar of fury. But it was all in vain. The AI was destroyed, and with it, the Council's hold over their forces. Zorvax lunged at Elena, his massive form crashing through the debris, but Elena was ready. She delivered a final, devastating strike, bringing down the alien leader in one swift motion. With Zorvax's death, the Council's forces crumbled. The remaining soldiers surrendered or fled, and the mothership, once a symbol of destruction, began to fall apart. The battle was over. As Elena stood amidst the ruins of the alien mothership, the weight of everything they had fought for settled in. The battle had been long, and the cost had been high. But humanity had won. They had defeated the Galactic Council. The war was over. Elena looked out at the stars, knowing that the future of Earth was secure. But the memories of the lives lost, the sacrifices made, would stay with her forever. She had led her people to victory, but at what cost? Still, there was no time to mourn. The battle was won, but the journey wasn't over. Elena turned to her team, her comrades, who had fought beside her every step of the way. Together, they had saved Earth. And together, they would rebuild. The final assault had ended, but humanity's story was just beginning. The silence in space was almost deafening as the battle came to an end. The once immense fleet of the Galactic Council, so powerful and terrifying, now lay broken and scattered. Where massive warships once towered, there were now just shattered fragments and floating debris, tumbling aimlessly through the void. The victory was overwhelming, but there was no joy. The cost had been too high, and the weight of the lives lost lingered in the air like a heavy fog. Elena Drake stood at the bow of the Vanguard, gazing into the vastness of space. Her eyes traced the wreckage of the Council's fleet, knowing that each piece of debris represented not just a ship, but lives, both human and alien. The final assault had cost them everything, but humanity had triumphed. Against all odds, Earth had proven its worth to the galaxy. The stars above her seemed to shine a little brighter, their cold light reflecting off the shattered hulls of alien ships. For a moment, Elena felt a sense of accomplishment, but it was fleeting. The real victory was not in the destruction of the enemy, but in the survival of humanity. Earth had faced its darkest hour, and come out stronger. She took a deep breath, letting the weight of the moment settle over her. The galaxy had changed. The power dynamic that had ruled for centuries had crumbled. The Galactic Council was no longer the dominant force in the universe. And Earth, the small, seemingly insignificant planet, had become a force to be reckoned with. But this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. As she stood on the deck of her ship, Elena's mind wandered back to the sacrifices made. The countless lives lost, the soldiers who had fought bravely and died without ever knowing the full scope of what they were fighting for. Elena had led her people to victory, but the scars of war would remain with her forever. Later, Elena stood alone at the memorial, her gaze fixed on the names engraved in stone. It was a solemn, quiet place, tucked away from the hustle of the fleet. This was where the fallen soldiers of the war were honored, where their memories lived on, even if their bodies had not. Bonner, the officer who had volunteered to sacrifice himself to destroy the Doomsday device, was here. His name was among the many, a reminder of the courage it took to do what he had done. The loss of him still stung in Elena's heart, despite the victory they had achieved. He was not the only one. So many others had given everything for this cause. Their faces flashed in her mind, each one a symbol of humanity's fight for survival. Her fingers gently brushed over the names, a silent promise that no one would ever be forgotten. They had all paid the price for peace, and she would make sure the galaxy knew their sacrifice. As she stood there, a sense of resolve washed over her. The battle was over, but the memories of those who had fallen would continue to fuel her drive for a better future. "I won't let you be forgotten," she whispered to the wind, a quiet vow she intended to keep. The war had taken so much, but it had also given humanity something invaluable, the strength to endure, the courage to fight, and the power to protect the ones they loved. Elena's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps behind her. Her second-in-command, Lyle, walked up quietly, his face somber. He said nothing, simply standing beside her. He understood. They both did. There were no words for moments like this. "We've won," Lyle said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Elena nodded, but her expression remained unchanged. "Yes. But the cost. The price we paid," Lyle finished for her. "It was high. But it was worth it." Elena didn't answer immediately. She knew what he meant. The victory had been hard-earned. They had done the impossible, and yet, the toll it had taken was not easily forgotten. But now, the universe would know the truth, humanity was not a race to be underestimated. Earth had proven itself, not through sheer might, but through unwavering determination and resilience. "We'll rebuild," Elena said, finally turning away from the memorial. "We'll honor their sacrifices. And we'll make sure no one ever threatens Earth again." Lyle nodded, his face filled with the same resolve. "We'll make sure of that." As the days passed, Earth began the long process of recovery. The fleet returned home, battered but victorious, and humanity started to rebuild from the ashes of war. The Council's fleet had been decimated, their leadership scattered, and their plans for domination crushed. But as the celebrations began, Elena knew that the victory was only temporary. The remnants of the Galactic Council, though weakened, were still out there, licking their wounds and plotting their next move. Elena spent many sleepless nights in the command center, poring over intelligence reports. What she found confirmed her fears. The Council was not finished yet. They were fractured, yes, but the power they had wielded for centuries would not be so easily erased. Their influence still stretched across the galaxy, and their thirst for revenge was bound to lead to new conflicts. There were whispers of rebellion in the Council's ranks, of factions forming to take back what they had lost. Some of their most powerful generals had gone into hiding, gathering their forces for a new wave of destruction. Elena's heart sank as she read the reports. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. "We've won a great victory," Elena said to her crew, her voice steady, "but this is just the beginning. The Council will regroup, and they will come for us again. We cannot afford to lower our guard. We must prepare for the next phase. For the future of humanity." Her words were met with solemn nods from her crew. They understood. They had fought for their survival, but now they had to fight to protect it. Earth's victory had come at a great cost, and the path ahead would be fraught with new dangers. As the final moments of the battle faded into history, Elena's gaze turned toward the stars. A new era was dawning, one in which Earth would play a pivotal role. But with the promise of a new era came the reality that the galaxy's conflicts were far from over. "We will be ready," Elena whispered to herself, her voice filled with determination. "We will stand strong, no matter what comes next." Her words hung in the air, a promise to the fallen and a challenge to the future. Humanity had won. They had proven their strength, their resilience, and their willingness to fight for their survival. But as Elena stood on the edge of this new world, she knew that peace was only temporary. The galaxy was vast, and many forces still lurked in the shadows. The Galactic Council might have been defeated, but the universe was full of new threats, new enemies, and new challenges. Yet, Elena was confident. Humanity had come a long way from the small, isolated planet it had once been. Earth was now a force to be reckoned with, and the human spirit, though tested, had proven unbreakable. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: Earth would never back down. With the first victory behind them, the next chapter of humanity's story had begun. And whatever the galaxy threw their way, Earth would stand ready to meet it head-on. "This is just the beginning," Elena's voice echoed as she looked up at the stars. The future was full of unknowns, but humanity's place in it had been secured. For now, they would rebuild. But tomorrow? Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new adventures, and perhaps even greater victories. And Elena Drake, the leader who had guided humanity to victory, would be ready.